In May 2020, a curious horror adventure game called Observation was released, developed by a Glasgow, Scotland-based game development studio No Code, and published by Devolver Digital. I remember noticing the game when it came out, but after seeing the screenshots, I thought it was an astronaut space simulator of some kind and didn't look further into it. It wasn't until after I finished No Code's first game that they made, Stories Untold from 2017, of which I have made a separate My Thoughts on video of its own, that I decided to take another look at Observation. And it turns out that Observation is a psychological sci-fi thriller and cosmic existential horror adventure game where you uncover what happened to Dr. Emma Fisher and her crew, but not through the eyes of an astronaut, but the lenses of Space Station Observation's artificial intelligence called S.A.M. You assume the role of S.A.M. by operating the station's control systems, cameras, and tools to assist Emma in discovering what's happening to the station, the vanished crew, and even S.A.M. himself. You are not on the station, you are the station. According to No Code's game director and co-founder John McKellen, who had previously worked at Creative Assembly as the lead UI designer for 2014's Alien Isolation, Stories Untold served as a road test for Observation, as the development team got the chance to develop mechanics and to learn from mistakes headed into development of Observation. So how fares No Code's second game? Is it as unique of an experience as Stories Untold was? My name is Siperos and these are my thoughts on Observation. The game doesn't waste any time and starts in the low-orbit space station Observation, 410 kilometers or about 255 miles above Earth, right after something happened. We don't know what exactly. Some sort of accident, or it may have been a collision that caused some major damage to the space station and even to us, the station's AI, S.A.M. And we have lost most of our data logs and system links, so we don't have full control over the station at the start. The first person who calls S.A.M. for assistance is Dr. Emma Fisher, the medical officer of Bioscience Division and the main character of the story. We assess the damage, try to fix whatever we can while also recover as much data as possible, get back S.A.M.'s access to all the station's systems, and find the rest of the missing crew. While we try to do all that, this mysterious black hexagon thing appears with strange events following afterwards, clearly indicating that some foreign cosmic power is at work here. We also learn that the station has gone way off course and is now orbiting Saturn. And S.A.M. doesn't know how we got there. The plot of Observation is very compelling and the mystery quite bizarre, but intriguing and kept me hooked and on the edge of my seat. For the most part. There were times when I became too frustrated with the game to thoroughly enjoy the story, but I'll talk about the sources of those frustrations later. Observation is quite the trip, but not scary. Actually, calling this a horror game would be a little misleading. I mean, you play as a space station AI. Why would you fear anything? Nor is there anything like a xenomorph trying to destroy you or kill your crew, so there's no game overs. The game is also rather thought-provoking, since it never spells anything out for you, encouraging you to think what's happening as this enigmatic story slowly unfolds. You can learn more about the crew and what's happening on the station by recovering and listening to crew members' audio logs and reading documents from their laptops, but even they don't really explain what's going on, at least the ones that I found, and I'm sure I missed some of them. It's clear that the developers were inspired by Stanley Kubrick's 1968's film 2001: A Space Odyssey, which also has a strange alien black monolith in it and features a sentient supercomputer HAL 9000 that goes rogue and starts killing the crew to stop them from deactivating him, stating that it would jeopardize the mission. That doesn't happen in Observation, although you do get to kill one person. S.A.M., voiced by Anthony Howell in a calm but at the same time unsettling voice, similarly to HAL, doesn't become sentient or anything until at the end of the game, so there is no real character development per se for S.A.M.
Module 10, hull contact points to 12 read false, suggesting that Module 12 is no longer securely attached to the station.
Just flickers of self-awareness at best, and something seems to have infiltrated into his programming, giving him, and thus you, this chilling command. Bring her. Obviously referring to Emma. But S.A.M. won't be experiencing deeper moral dilemmas or inner conflicts, which is a shame. He's about as much of a character as Alexa. The real star of the story is Emma, voiced by Kezia Burrows, the same voice actress who voiced Amanda Ripley in Alien Isolation.
S.A.M., voice authenticate. Dr. Emma Fisher, 140412.
Emma is with you throughout the game from start to finish. She helps you to get access to all the station's systems you had before the incident and gives you all the tasks you must complete to help her out and move on with the story. There are other characters in the game, all voice acted competently enough that you can take them seriously, but their appearances are brief and thus you end up not caring about them nearly as much. There is this one other crew member who has a bigger role to play and whom you end up killing, but talking about it more would be quite spoilery. So Emma is the only character you built any sort of close connection to. I like how she's obviously very stressed out and even scared, admitting as much herself.
And to be quite honest, I'm fucking terrified right now.
But manages to keep herself calm and collected, as expected from a trained astronaut. I also thought, as time went on, that Emma started to see Sam more as a fellow crew member, as a person, which I think is something that could happen when your only companion is a talking AI for long periods of time in such a predicament. Even though I was just a space station AI, looking at Emma through camera lenses, like a stalker almost, I felt very close to her in an almost intimate way, especially during the latter third of the game.
Look, I know this makes no sense, and you'll probably just give me some broken response. But I'm glad you're here, Sam.
I am here, Emma.
Yeah. Yeah, you are, aren't you?
Visually the game looks realistic overall, with a lot of attention paid to small details inside the station, each section of the station, like the Russian and Chinese arms, having their own distinctive aesthetic, reflecting the nations that built them and the crew members who live and work there. Cutscenes look crisp, but when looking at the environments through the lenses of Sam's cameras or the guidance spheres, the game uses subtle video effects to stimulate an occasional interference, grain and distortion, making it look like you are viewing the station through recording equipment. Every time you bump into something while floating around as a sphere, the screen shakes and becomes more distorted for a couple of seconds before going back to normal. It's a nice little touch. The character models, facial animations and lip syncing could have used some more work, but the convincing voice acting made up for the character's dead-eyed stares and awkward mouth movements. The sound design and beautiful lighting are also excellent and provide a tense atmosphere like Stories Untold did. The first time I went outside and saw Saturn so close was the coolest and simply a breathtaking moment that I just had to stop and take a good, long look at it before getting back to the task at hand. What makes Observation a unique experience is that instead of playing as your typical sole survivor protagonist that you normally would in a game with a story like this, you play as a supercomputer that would usually be your assistant or a little helper. So what do you do as Sam? At first you only have access to station module cameras, usually 3 placed in each module, to look around the station's interiors. You can pan and zoom in to scan interactable objects like documents and connect yourself to laptops and terminals to operate them and collect data. You get to later possess a guidance sphere, an orb-shaped drone that you use to float around and freely explore inside and outside the station. You do mundane tasks like opening hatches, identify system errors and other issues, and report them to Emma, who usually tells you to fix them or gives another assignment. As you progress through the game, you are introduced to Sam's several operating system interfaces that you must master to complete certain tasks. You do many of these tasks and minigames multiple times in the game, like unlocking hatches following schematics you found, and connecting to interactable objects typing in 3-digit codes, and a minigame where you must replicate the pattern of series of weird symbols shown by the black hexagon 3 different times. I have criticized at least a couple of games in the past for making the player do the same puzzle multiple times, Stories Untold being one of them, but here I don't mind these little chores. Not only because I expected to do many repeating mundane tasks because that's what computers do, but also because they were not too tedious or time consuming and were quite captivating. Unlike Stories Untold's Chapter 3 where you had to decipher multiple Morse code messages with very little instruction. That's not to say that everything is straightforward in Observation. It took me some time at first to get used to all of Sam's features and operating system interfaces. There's also this so-called response mode that you activate by pressing down R key. When in this mode, you can click on a point of interest, like a station alert in Sam's interface or damaged part of the station, and report it to Emma that way. One reason why I got stumped in the game occasionally early on was because I forgot this mode existed. And when I look back on it now, I don't get why response mode was even a thing. Why couldn't I just click on the points of interest I needed to report on without holding down R? Feels completely unnecessary. The other reason I got stuck, or rather lost in the game, was because navigation is difficult. which is understandable considering how we are in space where up and down are alien concepts. On the bright side, it actually felt like we are in space with no gravity. And at least inside the station we are in small modules and you do get access to a station map. Where navigation becomes frustratingly difficult is outside the station. The first time you go out there is to look for damaged parts of the station to report about to Emma. And because the station is a huge maze and you get easily disoriented, you will get lost even more easily. I was lost out there for almost an hour before I decided to look at a walkthrough. Even finding my way back inside was a pain, partly due to Emma's misleading instructions.
Please repeat your previous instruction.
Return to EAS-3 and open this hatch.
She is not much help to you and lets you deal with the problems on your own. All you can do is ask her to repeat her request in case you forget it. Shame that my grey brain cells can't match the capableness of a highly advanced supercomputer she expects me to be. All of these made observation a frustrating experience at first, and, to be honest, I was worried during my first spacewalk whether I would end up enjoying this game at all. Was this game going to be like Stories Untold Chapter 3, The Station Process, that was the worst part in the whole anthology for me? Thankfully no. I learned and adapted to all of S.A.M's interfaces and features eventually, and that smoothed the playthrough considerably, although I still got stuck occasionally. Other times when even someone as well trained and capable astronaut as Emma is no help to us is at the actual puzzles, of which there are only a handful because I don't consider busy work like finding the right schematic and use it to unlock a specific hatch as a puzzle. Anyway, since Emma can't make heads or tails out of all the technological stuff on the station, like this experimental fusion reactor, we must figure them out by ourselves. And these were really enjoyable to solve. I know this retro-styled interface may look very complex and even intimidating at first glance, but it's not that hard to figure out. The only times I ever needed to whoop out a walkthrough, which I did a few times, was to locate something like a coolant network node inside the station or the hatch outside to get back in. Not because I couldn't solve a puzzle. Some of them are very easy to understand and are essentially minigames, requiring more speed and right timing to solve them. The ones with time limits can be a little bit tedious, since you most likely have to try them again and again till you succeed. As a supercomputer you don't pick up items, so there's no item-based puzzles, which does limit the puzzle design. So there is not much actual gameplay in observation, which might be why response mode for instance was added, just to provide extra keys to press. Another way they could have made the game more engaging, and I honestly hope they would have done this, was by making Emma more active and do stuff on her own while you observe her via cameras. There is this one part where she moves from module to module and you could follow her by switching cameras. That was both cool and creepy at the same time. But unfortunately she stays in one location most of the time, waiting on you to complete her given tasks before she moves or does anything. It would have been so cool if she, and even other crew members, were actually doing something on their own and you would assist them when asked by unlocking or locking hatches as they move around the station, report them on alerts, damages, and even approaching danger, whether it's a crazed crew member gone mad or even an alien threat of some kind. Think of something like Night Trap but in space, less campy and cheesy and more alien-like.
Am I Claire Lambert? I want to get the hell out of here.
Dallas? No.
Take it easy.
Way to go, Control! I knew you could do it!
Now that would have been awesome, very intense, even scary, and more engaging. And that's kinda what I was expecting / hoping from Observation. Maybe the developers had a similar vision, but their budget and time frame just didn't allow it. Observation is a gripping, narrative-driven, linear and unique experience, much like Stories Untold was. It wasn't as engaging as I had hoped, and I did admittedly get frustrated with the game early on due to the difficult navigation, especially outside the station, occasional lack of clear instructions from Emma, and S.A.M's various operating system interfaces, but once I got the hang of those, and remembered that response mode was a thing, it was a relatively smooth ride. I enjoyed what few puzzles the game had, and the mystery was gripping with a tense atmosphere, great sound design, and convincing voice acting, especially by Siperos, that made up for the not as convincing facial animations of the protagonist. The attention to environment and visual details and the way how you moved around made me feel like I was actually in space. Depending on if you get stuck as often and for as long as I did, you can beat the game in about 10 hours or less, give or take. If you like atmospheric horror or psychological thriller adventure games taking place in outer space and want to play something different, in this case as a space station AI, I can definitely recommend Observation. As for what No Code is doing now, since 2020, according to their website, they started working on their latest, most ambitious title yet with a team twice the size of Observations, while working with Annapurna Interactive, the publisher of Outer Wilds. We don't know yet what their next game will be about, but if they have worked on it for about 2-ish years by now, it shouldn't take long for them to announce the next title. Whatever their next Slice of Madness ends up being about, I'm most definitely going to be interested in checking it out. And there you go folks, those were my thoughts on Observation. What are your thoughts on the game? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.